हेलो बच्चों, वेलकम to SPSVERSITY. In the previous session, we discussed about Thallophyta, its classification. Now we are going to discuss about the Bryophyta classification. So, आज हम ये डिस्कस करेंगे Bryophyta की classification. So, Bryophyta में दो क्लासेस हैं. इसमें एक क्लास है कि लीवरवॉर्ट्स और दूसरा क्लास मॉसेस. सो लीवरवॉर्ट्स के एग्जाम्पल मार्कन्शिया है और मॉसेस के एग्जाम्पल फिनेरिया. पहले लीवरवॉर्ट्स के बारे में आया तो इसका बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल मार्कन्शिया. सो मार्कन्शिया इज ए dioecious plant. So it is a dioecious plant. There are male and female plants separately. Okay. So female thallus of Markkansia and male thallus of Markkansia. So if we come to the general characters of the liverworts, anyway, they are non-vascular. All bryophytes are non-vascular. Most of them are terrestrial. Okay. And how the term liverworts is derived? Why? Because in ancient times it is used to cure liver diseases. In ancient times, they are used to cure liver diseases. That's why it has come liverworts. Okay. And when you come to vegetative reproduction by fragmentation, vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation. So thallus is broken down into fragments and it is forms. Each fragment will form a new thalli. And asexual reproduction is by gemmae. Gemmae are formed in structures. The structures are called gemmae cups. Gemmae cups के अंदर gemmae रहते. Sexual reproduction is by fusion of male and female gamete. Male gamete is called anthrozoid and female gamete is called egg cell. So female gamete egg cell is produced from archegonium. Male gamete is produced from Antheridium. Okay. सभी ये पिक्चर में देख रहे हैं कि ये जेम्मे कप है, पूरा जेम्मे कप. So inside the gemme cup there are gemmae. So this gemme or the method of asexual reproduction. So vegetative reproduction by fragmentation and asexual reproduction by gemmae cup. Okay. So these gemmae are formed in a small receptacle-like structure. This receptacle structure is called gemmae cups, which are present on dorsal surface of the thallus. So thallus में dorsal और ventral surface रहता. Ventral means which faces towards soil. Dorsal means which faces towards atmosphere. So dorsal surface which faces towards atmosphere, on this surface gemmae cups are formed. In this gemmae cups there are multicellular bodies. They are called, these are gemmae. So when they get detached and fall on the soil, they develop into new thallus. So each gemmae cup, okay, they are formed on the floor of gemmae. Gemmae are formed on the floor of gemmae cup, and they are attached vertically to gemmae cup by one cell stalk. Stalk is one cell. Okay. And gemmae are multicellular. the disc shape. So when they fall on the suitable substratum, they will germinate and form new one. Okay. So this gem may help in, that is, asexual reproduction. So when they fall on the soil from the lower surface, they will form rhizoids. Rhizoids are root-like structures. They are similar to roots, which help in absorption of minerals and nutrients. And they produce normally male and female thallus separately, as in Markantium. And when it comes to sexual reproduction, the male sex organ is called antheridium. So male को क्या बोलते हैं? Antheridium. Female sex organ is called orchigonium. So what you are seeing in the picture, it is an antheridium. Inside antheridium there are antheridial cells. Okay. So antheridium is attached with a small multicellular stalk. So antheridium में दो parts रहता, एक stalk और body. और antheridium के body अंदर the cells which are present inside antheridium, their body of the antheridium, they are called androgonial cells. And these androgonial cells are protected by one cell thick layer that is called sterile jacket. So which will give protection. So function of this jacket is to give protection. So its function is to give protection. Okay. So from androgonial cells, anthrozoids are produced. Anthrozoids means they are male gametes. Anthrozoids बोले तो वो male gametes है. So you can see anthrozoids which are releasing from antheridium with two flagellae. Okay. So these anthrozoids which are released from the antheridium, they has to reach to orchigonium, that is the female gamete. So the female sex organ is called orchigonium. Okay. So plural क्या है कि orchigonium. Okay. ये orchigonium flask shaped रहता. When you see the structure of orchigonium, it looks like a flask shape. It is having a multicellular stalk to which it is attached to thallus. A bulbous part is present which is called venter. And there is an elongated part which is called neck. So in orchigonium there are three parts: stalk, venter, neck. Venter में दो cells रहता. The lowermost cell which is large, which is called egg cell or oosphere, which is the female gamete. इसके ऊपर एक छोटा सेल रहता है, उसको क्या बोलते हैं कि ventral canal cell. And when you come to neck region, in the neck region there are neck canal cells. The ventral, in the neck there is neck canal cells. Okay. So this, during fertilization, the neck canal cells and ventral canal cells disappear and form mucus. So they will form a narrow channel through which male gamete reaches to the female gamete. So after fertilization, that is when the male gamete fuses with. Okay. So when the male gamete through water reaches through the orchigonium and finally it reaches to egg cell and fuses. So the fertilization takes place inside the orchigonium. After fertilization, it leads to formation of a diploid structure. इसको क्या बोलते हैं कि स्पोरोफाइट. स्पोरोफाइट के अंदर स्पोर्स प्रोड्यूस होता है. Okay. So this sporophyte releases spores by meiosis. So sporophyte के बारे में है तो स्पोरोफाइट में 3 पार्ट्स रहता, फूट, सीटा, कैप्सूल. Okay. Spores produced in capsule. Okay. So this inside the capsule. So capsule के अंदर sporogenous cells will undergo meiosis. So sporogenous cells के अंदर क्या होता है कि meiosis. So due to meiosis, what happens is from diploid cell, haploid spores are produced. So haploid spores are produced. So these haploid spores, when they are released from the capsule, they germinate and form a free living gametophyte. They will form a free living gametophyte. Okay. A Mercantia or Rixia examples say liverworts के examples. Now we will discuss about mosses. Okay. So these mosses are small herbaceous non-woody plants. So they absorb water, okay, and they will do by autotrophic nutrition by photosynthesis. Okay. So these mosses, they have rhizoids, that is, instead of roots they have rhizoids. Rhizoids are similar to roots functionally but not structurally. Okay. So they will grow in the place of the land where there is a plenty of moisture. Okay. So you can see the examples of mosses. Funaria is one of the best example, and another example is polytrichum. Okay. So this mosses, the dominant stage is gametophyte. और एक gametophyte में 2 stages रहता mosses में. The first stage is called protonema stage, which is a filamentous stage, creepy filamentous branch stage. इसको क्या बोलते हैं कि protonema. Second stage is leafy stage, which shows a structures like root, stem, leaf, like rhizoids, axis, leaves. Okay. So rhizoids, which are similar to, that is functionally similar to roots. Or axis, on the top, on the axis there are spirally arranged leaves. Okay. And this leafy gametophyte will have sex organs. So these mosses are found in shady places. Okay. These mosses are found in shady places. And the leaves of mosses, if you see, they are very simple, without stalk. They have single layer of cells. Okay. In the midrib region, they are thicker. Okay. And they have these leafy gametophore has root-like structures called their rhizoids, which will absorb water and minerals from the soil. So this is about the structure of the mosses. When you come to reproduction, it shows all the 3 types of reproduction: vegetative reproduction, that is by fragmentation, and budding in protonema, secondary protonema. When you come to sexual reproduction, the male sex organ is called antheridium, the female sex organ is called orchigonium. Okay. So after fertilization, the zygote develops into sporophyte consisting of fruit, seta and capsule. And when you come to Sporophyte of Mosses and when you compare with Sporophyte of liverworts, the Sporophyte of Mosses is more elaborate. Okay. And from the capsule, spores are produced. And these spores are produced by meiosis. And in this there is a elaborate mechanism of spore dispersal when compared with liverworts. So what you are seeing in this picture, it is a leafy gametophore. So it is a leafy gametophore. So which will reproduce sexually. And when it comes to economic importance of bryophytes, it is food for many herbaceous animals. Okay. And when it comes to sphagnum, which belongs to mosses, which act like they form peat and used as a fuel. And even sphagnum is used for packing of material, that is transshipment of living materials, as it holds water, as it has more water holding capacity. It prevents soil erosion. Softer lichens, these are first colonizers on barren rocks, that is in the succession process, that is during succession after lichens, these are colonizers. Okay. So till now we have discussed about Bryophyta classification, where it has two classes, liverworts and mosses. And when you come to Pteridophyta, which is the last division of the cryptogamy. So Pteridophyta में क्या रहता है? Pteridophyta में hostiles or fence रहता है. So this Pteridophyta is used for medicinal purposes as well as they are used as soil binders, and frequently they are used as ornamental plants. Okay. And these are the first plants, when I take in the point of evolution, these are the first plants where vascular tissues originated. So they come under. So these pteridophytes are vascular cryptogams. So cryptogams, in cryptogams there are thallophyte, bryophyte, pteridophytes. These are the only cryptogams with vascular tissues. Remaining two, thallophyte and bryophyte, doesn't have any vascular tissues. And these pteridophytes are also found in cool and dampy, shady places. Though they may flourish well in, that is, sandy soils, they are found in shady and dampy places. Why? Because they also require water for fertilization. So pteridophytes are vascular plants. That's why they have true root, stem and leaf. Why it is called true root, stem and leaf? Why? Because they possess vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem. The root, stem, leaf, if they have the vascular tissues, then they are called true root, stem and leaf. So they are called true root, stem and leaf. Okay. So what you are seeing, this is Pteropsidum. Okay. So here if you look into this one, pteridophytes. Okay. In this the main plant body is the sporophyte. The main plant body is sporophyte. They have vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem. So they have both vascular tissues, xylem and phloem. Okay. And the leaves of pteridophyte, if we take the smaller leaves and larger leaves, smaller are called microphylls as in Selaginella, macrophylls as in ferns. Okay. And on these leaves there are sporangia. So and on these leaves there are sporangia. So the leaves which possess sporangia, they are called Sporophylls. So they are called sporophylls. Okay. So these sporophylls will form a compact structures. इसको क्या बोलते हैं कि strobili or cones. Strobili or cones are same. So the best examples you can take Selaginella and Equisitum. So this is Selaginella, Equisitum, Fans, and this is Salvinia. So these are the examples of the pteridophytes. Okay. इस Sporangia के अंदर spores are produced by meiosis from spore mother cells. Okay. And when these spores germinate, they will form a free living gametophyte. So this free living gametophyte is called prothallus. So in pteridophytes, the sporophyte and gametophyte are independent. The sporophyte and gametophyte are independent, whereas in Bryophyta, sporophyte is dependent on gametophyte. Here, the sporophyte and gametophyte are independent. So the independent free living is called prothallus. So this prothallus, the gametophyte, will grow in damp and shady places to grow. Why? Because water is required for fertilization. Okay. That's the reason why the pteridophytes are the distribution is restricted to specific geographical regions. So on this prothallus there are male and female sex organs. Male sex organ is called antheridium, female sex organ is called orchigonium. Anyway, water is required for transfer of male gametes, antherozoids. So antherozoids कहाँ से आते हैं? Antheridia से आते हैं. From antheridium they has to reach to orchigonium. So after fusion we will get zygote. Again after fertilization from zygote we will get a sporophyte. Okay. So in this spores, formation of spores, when you come to bryophytes, it is homosporous. All will produce same kind of spores. But here it is not like this. Here majority of the pteridophytes will produce similar kind of spores. They are called homosporous. At the same time, there is an opposite condition also, that is heterosporous, where there are two kinds of spores are produced. That is microspores, small, and macrospores. When two kinds of spores are produced, they are called heterosporous. Like the examples are Selaginella and Salvinia. So megaspores on germination, they will give rise to female, and microspores on germination, they give rise to male gametophyte. So here you can see a fern. These are sporophylls, where sporangia are present in groups. They are called sori. So inside sporangia, if you see, spores are produced. On germination, it will form a haploid gametophyte that is called prothallus. So on sexual reproduction, it will form, that is, a sporophyte. Okay. So when you come to this, the female gametophyte is retained in the parent sporophyte. You got the development of zygote. Everything takes place in the female gametophyte. Okay. So this is an important event for origin of seed habit in the process of evolution. This is an important event, that is retention of female gametophyte. Okay. So till now we have discussed about general characters of pteridophytes. And when you come to classification of pteridophytes, इसमें 4 classes से पहला class Xylopsidum, Lycopsida, Spinopsida, Pteropsida. Xylopsida examples: Xylotum, Lycopsida, Selaginella, Lycopodium, Pinopsida equisitum, Pteropsida, Diopteris, Teres, Adiantum. When you come to Xylopsida, when you come to this Xylopsida, they are vascular plants. They don't have well differentiated structures like root, stem, leaf. And the stele is protostelic. Simple stele. Protostelic means simple stele. In the center there is xylem surrounded by phloem. Surrounded by phloem. So Xylopsida is the earliest class of these pteridophytes. The examples are Xylophyton, Neophyton, Coxomio. So this Xylopsida they are very small, epiphytic, which grow on other vascular plants, which form spores. They are herbaceous, and the sporophyte produces the stem like called rhizome. So the herbaceous sporophyte will have a crawling stem which is called rhizome, and which shows dichotomous branching, on which there are small leaves. Their sporophyte is rootless, they don't have any roots. The stem is underground. This underground stem is called rhizome, where there is underground part and an aerial one. So both are branching, shows dichotomous. So both show dichotomous branching. So rhizome will bear rhizoids, which play the role of roots. So the elevated branches, that is the aerial branches which has a leaf, they are veneless leaves which show photosynthesis. The next part is reproduction. So reproduction is by spores, which are produced inside sporangia. So these spores, when they fall in the soil, they germinate into haploid gametophyte. So that is, it is called prothallus. So on this prothallus, the Antheridium and Orchigonium are present, where on sexual reproduction they will form sporophyte. So the example for this is Xylotum. This is the picture of Xylotum, Xylopsida. These are sex organs, Xylotum, Sporangia, in which spores are produced. And when you look into the life cycle of Xylophytum, so the dominant stage is sporophyte, in which sporangia are formed. Sporangia will form spores by meiosis, and these spores, when they fall in the soil, they germinate and form gametophyte. So in gametophyte, Antheridium and Orchigonium are formed. On fertilization, they will form embryo. Embryo Sac Sporophyte. So this is the life cycle of the Xylotum, where it starts with a diploid stage. Next it leads to, that is, a gametophyte stage, haploid stage. Next is Lycopsida. Examples are Selaginella and Lycopodium. So in this you can see a clear differentiation, that is differentiated plant body, that is root, stem, leaf. So leaves are small, microphyllous, and branched vein in the middle. Sporangia are produced in the fertile leaves. They are called Sporophylls, which will form strobili. So sporophyte there is a root-like structure which is called the rhizophore, leaves, stem which is prostate, so which arises from the main stem. Selaginella is heterosporous, means it produces two kinds of spores. The larger one are called megaspores and the smaller one are called microspores. Megaspores will form megasporangium and microspores are produced in microsporangium. Okay. So, the leaves which will produce megasporangium, they are called megasporophylls, and the leaves which produce microsporangium, they are called microsporophylls. So, this condition is called Stachyosporous. Okay. And these sporophylls will aggregate and form cones. Cones are also called strobili. स्ट्रोबिले में दो टाइप ऑफ स्पोरांजिया रहता. So at the base there are megasporangium and at the top there are microsporangium. Okay. Macrosporangium से microspores आता है, megasporangium से megaspores आता है. Okay. So microsporangium will produce microspores, whereas megasporangium will produce megaspores, which are of 4 only. There are several microspores, but there are 4. Immature spores. So the sporangial wall has 3 layers. The innermost layer is called tapetum, which is a nourishing tissue which will provide food materials for the developing spores. So tapetum is a nourishing tissue. Okay. On maturation, a slit is formed. Slit means a pore is formed in the sporangium for release of spores. Spores will come out from this slit. Okay. So these spores will germinate and to develop into gametophyte. So microspores will develop into male gametophyte and megaspores will develop into female gametophyte. So both male and female gametophytes, okay, which will produce the male and female gametophyte. So on sexual reproduction, that is, embryo is formed which leads to development of sporophyte. So what you are seeing, the pictures of Selaginella, and this is the picture of Lycopodium. Okay. So next class है कि Pinopsidum. इसके examples Equisitum and Pteropsidum. Okay. This is Pinopsidum. Maybe you can see a differentiated plant body, Sporophyte. That is, it consists of root, stem, and leaf. So branching is dichotomous in aerial roots, whereas in rhizome and aerial shoots it is dichotomous. Okay. So rhizome will have rhizoids which will absorb nutrients. Okay. On the aerial shoot there are small leaf-like structures, that is scale leaf-like structures, leaf-like structures. So steel is protostele, simple or siphonostele. So no secondary growth. Okay. Bi or trilocular sporangia are produced on the leaves. Okay. So the antherozoids which are produced, they are spirally coiled and multiflagellate. They are multiflagellate, whereas in bryophytes it is biflagellate. Okay. Development of sporangium is called U.S.P type. So here you can see Homosporous condition. Okay. So the gametophyte, which is non-green, cylindrical, and which is associated with the endophytic fungus. So what you are seeing, it is Equisitum, the picture of Equisitum. And the last class of Pteridophyta is Pteropsida. Generally Pteropsida, they are called ferns. Okay. They differ from other classes by possessing raised leaves.
So this is in pteridophytes, so this is largest and highly evolved group, which has about 9,000 species, which shows a wide distribution. So the sporophyte is well differentiated with root, stem and leaf. Some may be epiphytic terrestrial and few are aquatic like Salvinia. So rhizomes are short and stump. The leaves are large megaphylls which are pinnately compound. Okay. Except if we take Ophioglossum, which belongs to Pteropsida, which has simple leaves. Okay. In pinnately compound leaf, if we take into the axis of pinnately compound leaf is called rachis, which has brown hairs. And if you look into the stele, they have leaf traces which are C-shaped. Okay. And the leaves, the young leaves will show succinate vernation. Succinate vernation means they show coiling like a watch spring. And if you look into the stele of Pteropsida, there is simple stele, protostele, as well as a still well-developed siphonostele, solenostele, dictyostele, and polycyclic stele, that is at the well-advanced steles. So most of them are homosporous, very few are heterosporous, very few are aquatic as well as heterosporous. So sporangia are produced on the margin of pinnacle. These are examples of the Pteropsida Dryopteris and Teres. What you are seeing, this is a gametophore, prothallus. Okay. अभी तक हमें डिस्कस किया टेरिडोफाइट्स के बारे में. अभी हमें डिस्कस करेंगे जिम्नोस्पर्म्स के बारे में. Okay. So Gymnosperms comes under the phanerogames, that is seed producing plants. When you come to Gymnosperms, gymno means naked, without covering. Sperms means seeds, where ovules are not covered by ovary wall. The roots are generally tap roots. And when you come to this, the pinus, which is associated with mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae means they are associated with hyphae of fungi. And when you come to cycos, they have small specialized roots which has nitrogen fixing bacteria. They are called coralloid roots. Cycos has coralloid roots. Coralloids के roots के अंदर क्या रहता है कि nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria. They are nostoc and anabino. So nostoc and anabino are nitrogen fixing bacteria which are present in coralloid roots. They have normal roots which will perform normal functions. Coralloid roots will perform specialized functions like nitrogen fixation. So they don't produce seeds, they will produce seeds, but they don't produce fruits as well, they don't produce flowers. They are generally found in colder regions. Okay. So here ovules are present but no ovary. The dominant stage is diploid sporophyte. Okay. And in this gymnosperms, the largest gymnosperm is sequoia, which is called commonly redwood tree. And it is well differentiated. Root, stem and leaves are well differentiated. So here you can see cycos and pinus. Okay. So roots are tap roots, whereas in some species like pinus, which is associated with fungi, mycorrhizae. So mycorrhizae means it is an association, the roots are associated with the hyphae of fungi, where fungi will absorb the nutrients and water from the soil, where it shows a symbiotic association. Both are benefited, plant as well as fungus. So plant will give nutrients to the fungi, whereas fungi will absorb water and minerals and give it to.
साइकोस में नॉर्मल रूट्स और कोरलोइड रूट्स रहता है. कोरलोइड रूट्स के अंदर नाइट्रोजन फिक्सिंग बैक्टीरिया रहता, नॉस्टॉक एंड एनापेना, which will fix atmosphere. And leaves will be needle-like leaves. Okay. So you have naked seeds. So when you come to the Gymnosperms, there is no ovary wall, they don't have ovary style and stigma, only ovules are present. So here, as there is no stigma, directly the pollen grains will fall on ovule by wind. It is called direct pollination. इसको क्या बोलते हैं कि direct pollination. Here, as they don't have stigma, directly pollen grains will fall on ovule. So pollen grains mean two gametes, that is produce two gametes. Okay. Only one of them is functional. Okay. And these seeds contain endosperm, which will store food, which will help in development of the embryo. So xylem में xylem vessels रहता, no vessels, only tracheids are present. Phloem has no leaves in Pinus. Okay. When you come to Psychos, they are pinnately compound leaves with a rachis which has brown colored hairs. And these leaves show xerophytic adaptations, like in growing in dry area. They have thick cuticle, sunken stomata, transfusion tissue, needle-like leaves to reduce the surface area for transpiration. Okay. They have xylem and phloem. When you come to netum of one example of netum of pteridophytes, which has even vessels. Generally, vessels are not present, but in netum, their vessels are present. All gymnosperms are heterosporous. They produce two types of spores, microspores and megaspores. Okay. So certain leaves will form sporangia, which are called sporophylls, that is, which will form cones. Sporophylls have sporangia, where spores are produced within the sporangia. There are microsporophylls and megasporophylls. Okay. Microsporophylls are which form male cone, which will produce microsporangia. Inside, microspores are produced. Megasporophylls, which are compactly arranged into form, they will form megasporangia, that is ovules. Okay. So when you come to Pinus, Pinus is monoecious. Both male and female are present in the same plant, whereas Cycas is dioecious, where male and female are present on different plants, like papaya. So inside microsporangium, there is a nutritive tissue that is called nucellus, which is covered by protective structures, integuments. Okay. The same like megaspore mother cell will form, that is on meiosis, it will form 4 megaspores. In this 4, 3 are non-functional, only 1 is functional megaspore. So 3 will degenerate, only 1 functional megaspore will develop into a female gametophyte. Okay. So here the pollen grains will fall directly on the ovule during pollination. Okay. Pollen grain will germinate, which will carry gametes and reach to archegonium. So they will reach to archegonium. So fertilization will result in zygote, which will develop into later on a multicellular structure embryo. Okay. So ovule becomes transformed into seeds. Okay. Here there is no ovary, no fruit, only seed is formed. So when you look into the life cycle of gymnosperms, it has both haplod and diplod, alternation of generation. Whereas here sporophyte is dominant. Okay. Gametophyte is very short, which produces the cones. The male cones and female cones. Male cones have microsporophylls. On microsporophylls, there are microsporangia which will produce microspores. So microspores will develop into male gametes. They are called pollen grains. So here you can see the male gametes, the pollen grains with wings. Female cone, the megasporophylls, which has megasporangia, which will produce megaspores from megaspore mother cell. So you can see this is a female cone. So pollen grains are carried by wind. So where pollen grains will reach to the produce on germination, they will form, they will reach to the female, and they on fertilization they will produce zygote embryo. So these are seeds. Okay. So they come under Embryophyta, where embryo is produced. Seeds, naked seeds without ovary. And when you come to classification of Gymnosperms, that is Coniferophyta, Cycadophyta, Zincophyta, Gnetophyta. And generally they are found in temperate forests and boreal forests. So Coniferophyta, which has conifers, which has root, stem and leaves, they have xylem and phloem. Okay. Cambium is present in the steels of this, which help in thickening of stems. Pollen is produced in male cones. Ovules are produced in female cones. Okay. So anyway, this doesn't have fruits, but when you come to this coniferous, only seeds are produced. Okay. So maximum size of seeds is coniferous is 100 meters. So Pinus is the best example, which is monoecious. Cycadophyta, the best example for this is Cycos, which is dioecious, which has unbranched stem. Okay. And on the stem there are girdling leaf traces, that is persistent leaf traces. After leaf fall, the leaf traces are left out and they have coralloid roots. They don't have axillary buds, open corpophytes. So you can see Cycos. Male and female plants, as it is dioecious. So every year male plant will produce one single male cone. Okay. So male cone is produced from the top of the apical meristem. Due to this, the growth of the stem is checked. Okay. So here you can see, that is, when after male cone, that is female reproductive cone, that is megasporophylls. Every year it produces megasporophylls in acropetal succession. Okay. This is male cone, this is female cone. The next class is Zincophyta. The example is Zinco. Okay. Like some of the gender of Zincophyte, Zincoides and Bira are extinct. So Zinco has only the genus Zinco has only one member, Zinco biloba, which is called Zinco tree. It is also called maiden hair tree because of resemblance of bilobe leaves. It is the oldest living seed plants and it is considered as one of the wonders of the world. Okay. Fossils are leaves with similar combination. It has long branches and short branches. So leaves are produced on long branches. Okay. So Zinco is deciduous. The leaves of some varieties still turn into beautiful golden color in the autumn season. And it is dioecious. So when you look at the male cone, that is, it looks like catkin inflorescence. And pollen grain which is released, which has 4 cells, and it is dispersed by wind, which reaches to the ovule. Okay. There are two orchigonia in the female gametophyte which has 4 neck cells, on one neck canal cell and one egg cell. Okay. So male gametes reach to this. And on fertilization. So the fertilization is not completely through pollen tube. Some is through pollen tube, that is siphonogamy, and through by swimming judeogamy. The antherozoids are multiciliate. They have cilia for swimming. And you can see polyembryony where more than one embryo is produced. Okay. So this is Zinco plant where the leaves will turn into golden color during autumn season. Zinco biloba seeds. So they exhibit diplontic life cycle alternation of generation. And the last class is Gametophyte, which are distributed in tropical and the genus Neetum is the best example for this, which is found in Southeast Asia, North America, South Pacific, West Africa. Okay. The examples are Ephedra, Neetum, Welwitschia. There are 65 species of Ephedra, there are more than 30 in Welwitschia. And these three genera exhibit great diversity in form and size. So you can see Welwitschia. Vestigial organs, if you see small trees, their leaves are simple opposite, scale like long strap. They have true vessels, which produce secondary. They have micro and megasporangia. Ovule is covered by single integument. Embryo has 2 cotyledons. OPS endosperm. This is Ephedra, Neetum, Welwitschia. Ephedra, Neetum, Welwitschia. And the next division in phanerogamy is Angiosperm. Angio means which has both ovule and ovary. Ovule is covered by ovary. So that is seed and fruit both are produced. So this is the largest group of plants with a wide range of habitats. So flowerism, modified shoot. Flower is produced, which is a modified shoot. Okay. And these angiosperms, most of the angiosperms are economically important. They serve as source of medicines, fibers, timbers, and many other commercial products. Here also Sporophyte is dominant, the life cycle, which has well differentiated root, stem, and leaf. They have well advanced vascular system, that is root stem, that is xylem vessels, companion cells in the phloem. So what you are seeing, it is flower where there are parts like sepals, petals, stamens, carpels. This is anther. Anther lobes. Inside anther lobes there are pollen sacs. Inside pollen sacs, pollen mother cells which will form pollen by meiosis. The stamen consists of filament and anther. So anther के अंदर microspores mother cells रहता which produce microspores later on pollen. Female reproductive organ is called pistil or corbel. A pistil or corbel में 3 parts रहता, ovary, style, stigma. So this is ovule which is covered by integuments. Inside a nucellus from which embryo sac is formed. Okay. So embryo sac is formed from megaspore mother cell by meiosis. Only one megaspore will develop into it. This is embryo sac, which is called female gametophyte, which has antipodals, polar nuclei, central cell, synergids. Okay. So this is the structure of female gametophyte embryo sac, which is produced inside the ovule. So pollen grains will fall on the stigma of the corpel, by which they will form pollen tube, and through pollen tube it reaches to ovule. So in this, if you look into the fertilization, one male gamete will fuse with the female gamete, which is called syngamy. Second male gamete will fuse with secondary nucleus, which will form a triploid primary endosperm nucleus, which is called triple fusion. Here there are 2 fusions, syngamy and triple fusion, which is called double fertilization.
which is unique to Angiosperms. Okay. So antipodals and cyanogens will degenerate, embryo will develop, endosperm will develop. Ovary will form seeds, ovary will form fruit. Okay. Angiosperms, if you look into this, there are two classes, dicotyledons and monocotyledons. Dicotyledons means which has two cotyledons in their embryo, which monocotyledons means which has single cotyledon. So smallest angiosperm Wolffia and largest angiosperm is Eucalyptus. So examples of dicots, if you take mango, neem, rose, these all will come under dicotyledons. Examples of monocotyledons, maize, sugarcane, grass, these all millets will come under monocotyledons. This is life cycle of angiosperms, where it starts with a sporophyte which has root, stem and leaf, flower, which produces the gametes. So these gametes, that is male and female gametes, will fuse and form a zygote like this. Again, it forms a sporophyte. So which shows alternation of generation, where sporophyte is dominant and gametophyte is very short. Heterosporos, it produces two types of spores, that is microspores and megaspores. Okay. There are sequential of steps in the formation, that is in the sexual reproduction, that is formation of male gamete, formation, development of female gamete. Fertilization, in this it is double fertilization, development of embryo and endosperm. So this is how the life cycle of angiosperms is like this. So this is about angiosperms. So in this session we discussed about bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms. Thank you all. We'll meet in the next session.